you and WPC Tripp were there before the accused Clayton arrived?
Division passed on the name and address of the owner. Ronald James Clayton, 18 the Walk, Croft End, to my station at 12:41 p.m. We were sent out immediately, sir.
And you had to wait how long before she returned?
Well, our information was that the Mini PUL 954F left Humbard's car park at 12:19 p.m. It came into my view at the Walk, Croft End at 6 minutes past 1, sir.
47 minutes. For a journey which should take how long, at the most?
Oh, couldn't be more than 20 minutes by car, sir.
And was there a dress under the PVC Macintosh on the car seat?
No, sir, there was no dress in the car at all. I asked the accused Clayton if there had been a dress under the Mac when she left the store's car park. She replied, "I don't know what you're talking about."
What happened when you asked her to accompany you to the station?
She became abusive, sir. She said, "This is ridiculous. How dare you treat me like a common criminal?"
Well, had you said anything about arresting her? Or that she was a criminal?
No, sir.
She just jumped to that conclusion. I see. Thank you.
Constable Burslem, when you first saw the Macintosh lying on the front seat, could you see its red lining?
The lining, sir? Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Yes, I believe I did when I picked up the Mac to look for the dress.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you consider the moment before you picked the Macintosh up? Do you think you could have mistaken the red lining for the red dress that you were looking for?
No, I don't believe I could, Your Honor.
You could not have mistaken it for the red dress. Why not?
Well, my information was to look for a dress. I didn't know that it was red then, Your Honor.
Yes, I see.
Constable, did you ask Mrs. Clayton if she made any stops on the way home?
No, ma'am.
So you'd no idea if she'd stopped or not?
No, ma'am.
You just presumed she'd come directly from the car park to Croft End. Thank you.
Well,
No questions, Your Honour.
Thank you, Constable. You may stand on.
Your Honor.
I wish to call Peter McLennan.
Peter McLennan.
What is your religion, please?
CV.
Will you take the book in your right hand and swear the oath, please?
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I give to this court and jury shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Peter McLennan, you are 31, married with 2 children. You live at Flat 2, Branston House, Branston Common, and you are the manager of the Broad Green branch of Humbard's.
Apart from one amendment, that is correct. We now have 3 children. My wife had another girl last night.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Both well, I hope.
We all hope so, Mr. Harvesty, but not at the expense of the court's time, if you please.
My apologies, Your Honour. The first you knew of all this, Mr. McLennan, was when?
When Mrs. Holland brought Miss Mitchell to my office.
What is the usual procedure in these cases at Humbard's?
Well, first I ask the store detective to give her account in the presence of the suspect, and then I invite the suspect to comment.
What did the accused Mitchell say?
She just denied she'd taken the dress.
So you called for corroborative evidence?
Yes, from Miss Owens of the dress department.
What was the accused's comment on her statement?
She refused to say another word.
Thank you, Mr. McLennan.
You have you not, thousands of garments in stock at any one time?
Finest range in the district.
Quite. How can you be so sure that this missing dress isn't still somewhere in that range? Did you check the entire stock?
Yes, but the stock of this particular department is not enormous. In fact, I personally stayed behind that evening and checked the section to prove it missing. A red paisley silk dress, size 12, marked at £32.
But that was after the store had closed, not before you informed the police.
I couldn't possibly have done it whilst the store was open.
So perhaps the red dress could have been sold during the remaining business hours.
I scrutinised every single sales docket for that day personally. The dress had not been sold.
But it could have been stolen by someone during that time, could it not?
Miss Owens discovered it missing immediately. She's a very reliable girl.
Oh, but surely like us all. Not infallible.
Mr. McLennan, you seem very young for the responsible post of managing a large departmental store.
Youngest manager in the Humbards organisation, yes. But Broad Green is the smallest branch in the group.
A stepping stone to greater heights. See, how many staff do you control?
Nearly 100.
And how many store detectives?
Your Honour, I would prefer not to say. The incidence of shoplifting is far too high as it is.
Is the question essential, Mr. Dealey?
I'll put it another way, Your Honour. Do you have a security officer in charge of your detectives?
Yes, an ex-superintendent of Scotland Yard, a very experienced man.
And he lays down the procedures you follow.
For all our branches.
A suspect must not be approached inside the store, for example.
Well, if we did, they'd say I was just taking out of the daylight or make some other lame excuse.
But in this incident, no stolen goods were recovered. In these unusual circumstances, didn't you ask your chief security officer for his advice?
I telephoned head office, yes.
And he advised you to prosecute? Without the vital evidence?
He was out, giving evidence in court on some other case.
So you acted without his expert advice?
Well, it was a routine call. I had no doubts in my own mind. He only gives his opinion. The ultimate responsibility is the branch manager's. And I'd experienced plenty of shoplifting incidents even before I was appointed manager.
You have a thing about shoplifters, don't you?
A more precise question, if you please, Mr. Dealey. The witness may perhaps surmise what you mean by having a thing, but he should not be expected to.
Sorry, Your Honour. What is your personal attitude towards shoplifters?
I feel sorry for them. Some of them are sick. Shoplifting can be a cry from someone who needs help or excitement or is lonely.
That is a very good book on the subject, isn't it? But surely your responsibility is to humbards. You can't let people steal their property just because they may be in need of care.
Of course not. Our wastage last year was nearly 4%.
Wastage is the trade name used for losses due to shoplifting.
Well, it includes pilfering, that sort of loss.
And 4% is high?
4% of a vast turnover like ours. Very high.
So if you could dramatically reduce the wastage, it would increase your profits, wouldn't it?
Automatically, it must do.
And that would be a feather in your cap. And now your family has another mouth to feed. You're even more ambitious to become manager of a larger branch. Is that not so?
The baby wasn't born then.
You know it was on the way, though, didn't you?
Your Honour, this is irrelevant to the case, I think.
Mr. Dealey, I don't want to stop you developing your cross-examination, but you do seem to be straying unnecessarily.
Your Honour, Mr. McLennan, I put it to you that this case would never have been brought if it was not for your understandable, if overzealous desire to step up your drive against shoplifting.
That is not so.
Well, you do admit you're having a drive against shoplifting.
I've tightened up our security, yes. Nothing which affects this case.
What sort of tightening up?
I've impressed vigilance upon all my staff, that's all.
Is it true that you've increased your security staff quite recently?
Only by one, a part-timer at that.
A part-timer? With no previous experience, not even ex-police force?
Our senior store detective always keeps an eye on trainees.
But on May the 8th, your senior store detective had the day off. And your trainee was thrown in at the deep end after only 3 weeks' experience. Mrs. Marion Holland, whose story you rely on.
She learned quickly. She was very observant and honest.
But she could have been mistaken. And at the expense of 2 innocent customers.
She was not mistaken. I'm sure she wasn't.
No further questions.
If I may, Your Honour. Mr. McLennan, do you always prosecute offenders caught in your store?
Only when we're sure of our ground. It would be very bad for the store's image.
Yes. What incidents of the cases you bring are upheld by the courts?
Almost all successful.
Thank you, Mr. McLennan. That is the case for the prosecution, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. McLennan. You may stand down.
Thank you.
At this point, I will adjourn until tomorrow.
Are we doing in this circus?
I can't do it.
Can't do what?
Answer questions like they've been doing. I can't. Oh, Miss Tate, do I have to tomorrow?
Oh, yes, you must, or your chances of being acquitted are.
The case of the Queen versus Clayton and Mitchell will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.